Hey everyone, welcome to HockeyBuzzcast. It's Friday, so that means we have the incredible Kevin Allen with us. We kind of started, that we're starting to get Kevin on Fridays, so Fridays with Kevin. All right, I'm gonna go for it.
Thank God it's Friday.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Friday, it's the beginning.
Fridays matter. It doesn't matter.
It's the day, but it really is only now basically the day before Saturday. That's right. Friday is. But anyway,
like there's a difference right now.
More of the same on Saturday coming to you.
Go ahead, Russ.
All right. So I am going to talk with the NFL draft coming up about, and Kevin will identify with this, about a franchise that doesn't seem to value their homegrown players anymore, and that's the New York Jets. So it started with Darrelle Revis, who was their best defensive back they've ever had, and they got rid of him because they want to pay him. So he went to the Patriots and won a Super Bowl. They now have Jamal Adams, who, again, Joe Douglas, who came over from the Eagles, didn't do a lot in free agency last year. A lot of people gave him a pass because he came in middle of the summer, fine, whatever. Hasn't done much with asset management as far as signing other than not spending money. Lost Robbie Anderson, who was Jamal Adams' best friend. And the minute Jamal Adams, who is their big star, the minute that Anderson left, Jamal Adams posted on Twitter, I see now football is all business. And Joe Douglas previously had said he was going to take care of Jamal Adams and make sure they extended him. He hasn't done any of that. So now the talk is Jamal Adams isn't going to show up for this virtual camp, whatever it is that Mike was talking about the other day. And so now we're going down the path of either trading him at this draft or losing him when his contract is up. And frankly, as a Jet fan, I'm getting tired of it because you can't be in a perennial rebuild. You have some star players that you could never really get back. Yeah, if you're a great drafting team, you might do that. The Jets aren't a great drafting team. And Joe Douglas isn't necessarily a great drafter because, again, you can go look at the Eagles. They didn't have any receivers for Carson Wentz, and now all of a sudden the Jets barely have any receivers for Sam Darnold. So that seems to be a problem that's carrying over unless he rectifies it. End of the day, same as Kevin would probably say about the Lions, it does wear on you as a fan, like, hey, you can't even seem to hold on to your best players. And it's hard to get excited for a draft when that is the ultimate game plan since the Johnsons have owned the Jets.
Yeah, that is similar to Lions. But with the Lions, it's just critical mistakes made, in the course of drafting. Last season, they got a real good tight end, but they took him too high. It sort of reminds me of in the NHL. I can't imagine taking a goalie high in an NHL draft anymore, just on the metrics of it all. First of all, it takes a long time to get them in the league, number one. And number two, you're just as likely statistically to find a quality goalie down in the draft as you are early in the draft. Now, there have been some exceptions.
Yeah, and this year might be one of those, but you're right otherwise.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sometimes analytics, if you look at it from a historical perspective, give you a lot of insight.
Yes.
Into, kind of what's happened. So that's how I look about the Lions. They've just made mistakes. But this is what I would say. And I think we can all relate to this. And I'm half joking about this, but half is the optimum word. When the draft starts next week, now I pay attention to the draft, but I'm not a guy who goes in gavel to gavel. I go in and I see who the Lions take at the start of each day. I'm interested. But whatever number of hours that ESPN is going to give me, I'm in for this year's draft just because I'm starved for live sports action.
We're all going to watch it.
Yeah. And it's, we all know just enough about college football that we'll recognize some of the names. If nothing else, we'll recognize the programs that's sending these players. We know the history of, some schools turn out a lot of great offensive linemen and everything else. So
I recognize when my team screws up in their pick. I can tell you that.
Well, Jeff Lageman.
Yeah. So, and what else is interesting is, we have the first team that's officially announced they're resuming play and are the first league, and that's of course golf. So now I'm a very modest golf fan. And historically, I've only been interested if Tiger Woods has played because I'm interested in the Tiger Woods phenomenon. So it'll be interesting to see because I don't know whether Tiger Woods is going to play those tournaments, but if I have to watch live golf, I'll watch live golf.
I'll watch it for 10 minutes to see the setup, but
if I have to watch live,
See,
out of morbid curiosity, but that's it.
I'm interested in the Tiger Woods phenomenon because I'm a Phil Mickelson fan, so I'm rooting for Tiger to lose.
See, I'm just the opposite. Like, I have such, to me, he's become the villain.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Phil Mickelson's the villain, and Tiger Woods, despite all of his deficiencies as a human being, has become the hero. It'll just be interesting. But the big thing is how soon before we're going to see baseball and NHL and NBA. And of all the sports, Russ and Mike in particular, because I know you're NFL fans like me, doesn't it feel like if only one sport was going to get canceled, it's going to be the NFL?
Yeah.
Even though they don't start until September. Just the Petri dish.
They have the biggest potential problem. There's no question.
Yeah, and there's more players in a dressing room. And again, I could be completely wrong in this, but it feels like because of all the scrapes and cuts and things that
and they're like literally on top of each other, sweating and everything.
Every play they collide.
Yeah.
I think, and I've been critical of the NFL in the sense that, and we just talked about this yesterday, Kev, where Jake Glazer sort of held a story all day and then says at the end of the day, oh, here's the first NFL player with COVID-19, and people killed him, and they should, because that was just dumb the way he did it.
Right.
But this is only one guy because he had symptoms, and the NFL has stayed completely away from this subject. Yeah. And I think at some point they could get hit hard. They could, for the reasons you're bringing up.
Well, yesterday Von Miller came out and said he was diagnosed with coronavirus, so it's starting to leak out a little bit. But I'm actually going the opposite way. I think the NFL cares the least about their players, and their bottom line is making money off of television contracts. And if they play the games even with no fans, they're going to get their billions. So I think they'll still play, and even if it has to be in front of no people.
No, but what Kevin says makes really good sense.
But in terms of communicating the disease, it's contact, it's players sweating all over each other.
They're less covered than hockey players are.
Yes.
And there's a lot more, unless they're wearing masks under their masks, which they might, they're going to be spitting on each other right at the line of scrimmage. So I think Kevin makes an excellent point.
Well, okay, and I'll save the McCartney thing till Monday, but I want to ask this because if you remember a couple years ago in the playoffs, Brad Marchand licks Leo Komarov of the Maple Leafs during a playoff series. I don't even think he got fined. I think he just got warned. In this current scenario with COVID-19, how many games does he get suspended? Because he
gets arrested.
He gets arrested. I know.
Yeah, he might get a 15, 20 game suspension. He
could be permanently suspended.
Hey, they arrested a woman in a supermarket for spitting on oranges.
Right. Yeah, or Garnet Hathaway spitting on a player. I mean, he did that. That would be fine. I mean, I think he got suspended for 2 games, and I was surprised he got that much.
It's funny you say that, Mike, because Joe Haggerty wrote a story about Marchand, and my quote tweet was, yeah, I don't think he'll be licking anybody. And I said pretty much the same thing you said. I wonder what that would, turn out to be if he did, So yeah, I think they would throw the book at him.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get going, and we'll talk about what it may look like if we play.
Yeah, let's do it. There we go. Ready? What the hell? 17th. All right. I'm just gonna say it. Can I just say it's a day of the week? Hi, Hockey World. It's day of the week. It's in April.
It's actually excusable that you don't know the date.
Finally, thanks.
And it really is.
That's my proof that if you keep doing something horribly long enough, it'll be fine.
Plus, it doesn't matter what the date is.
It doesn't matter. Well, Hockey World, it's a day of the week in the month of April. Mike, that's it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen, I think.
And I'm Eklund, and I know it's April 17th, 2020. And you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the world. Now with more Kevin Allen. Okay, so today we're going to first talk about Kevin. There are so many crazy signals being thrown at us now. Bettman now is Bettman on the Trump.
Well, I think it's gone beyond that, Eck. I mean, I think there's a clear direction here.
Okay, please give me the clear direction because
I think the direction is they intend to play.
Right.
They're going to play.
Yeah, they're going to play, and though there is no finalized plan because we don't quite know what the states are going to do, I think that if you talk to people around the league, what the conclusion that you're hearing is neutral sites, no fans, and seclusion in a giving everyone a bubble to try to live in and to try to keep the virus at bay that way. But the question that I think is the most important question. I mean, everyone's talking about testing, like how often are they going to be tested is
right.
What happens if somebody tests positive?
Right.
They did bring that up. Fauci, I think, brought that up and said that, yes, if somebody tests positive, then you have to immediately go and test everybody else and then quarantine that person away from wherever you're quarantining everybody else. Right. And they probably could still go on. They felt like if they tested everybody ahead of time and you knew everybody was clean and then all of a sudden somehow somebody got it, it wouldn't be as bad as, in real life.
See, I think that's wrong, though, because, what we've heard is that, sometimes you don't test positive right away. Mm-hmm. So, what is that going to mean? And let's just say that the Maple Leafs are playing someone and the Maple Leafs have 3 players test positive.
Right.
Now, they're going to go quarantine for 14 days if those 3 players, and as long as the other team has no one, it's fine.
Well, there's a missing factor here, Kev. We talked about this yesterday, and I think this could be a factor. So MLB is the only league taking part in antibody testing. They may say that you can't play unless you have antibodies built up to play. Like they may.
Wow, we really have hit George Orwellian.
But here's the problem.
They might say it.
We don't even know for sure whether antibodies prove that you can't get it again.
Right. We're hoping with the MLB testing that it shows something to that effect.
Well, Aqua was saying something in his blog yesterday about them almost like purposely infecting players like it's smallpox.
That was a joke because I brought back like the chickenpox parties of my youth when we used to get kids together in chickenpox parties, so we would get chickenpox.
I mean, please.
The herd immunity has proven to be non-effective.
No, I know.
So let's not.
I was just saying, where we are.
But the issue that I have is that I think and look, I've said continuously now for 2 weeks, no one will be more excited if they decide to play than I will. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not sure it's the right thing to do. And I also believe, and I do believe this, that Donald Fear and Gary Bettman are going to do everything in their power to make it safe for the players. I keep seeing online people saying, "Oh, they don't care about the players." Baloney. They care a lot about the players.
The players are their assets. I mean, that's there's beyond the human factor of it.
They're spending a lot of time talking to people trying to get this all together. The problem is that there's no right answer that you could find. Like you don't know what the right answer is.
Well, I don't know if you saw my article that I put out, Kevin, about the scenario that I was told from a couple of people. But that scenario had that they would be okay putting this off until as long as the Stanley Cup was awarded in 2020, and essentially saying that they could start as late as September.
Well, I haven't heard that. Mm-hmm. Because I know there's a lot of emphasis on making sure they get an 82-game season next year. The problem with that is we have now in California, people on record, people that count, the mayor of Los Angeles and the governor, saying that it's possible that there'll be no sporting events played in those cities in this calendar year.
Right.
So,
but it's also possible that they do play. Like he's covering it the right way. I just did some digging, Kev. There is a test, and this is what I think the leagues are banking on, that could give you results in 45 minutes. If that's the case, then you literally could.
Not widely available, but okay.
Not yet. But we don't know. If that test does become widely available, now nothing has. So I understand the skepticism, but then you literally could test somebody before warm-ups and know before he even goes out on the ice if he should play or not.
Well,
he's got it.
Are we just assuming that because they're the NHL and they're pro leagues, they can get all this when you and I can't?
I think that's part and parcel with what they're getting in terms of favorable treatment from Trump.
Yeah.
They're going to be provided with these tests.
Okay. I just wanted to get that on the record. I'm trying
Kevin, everybody in the world will be fine with that, right?
Yeah. I want you to stipulate that that's what's going to happen.
No, that is what's going to happen because
I mean, come on. There are people who don't care as much about hockey as we do. I mean, this is like there are many people who will not be okay with the players.
But this is why Trump put them all on that council, because basically by putting them on the council, he is now going to say, yeah, you could get the testing. It's going to happen.
It goes beyond that, though. It goes, look, they have relationships with big-time doctors and big-time hospitals.
Right.
So they don't need Donald Trump to get this done.
No.
In Detroit, the Red Wings are working, with a primary physician here who knows everybody, and that's why it happens. And
but I'm not going down the politics road. I'm just doing this to finish the conversation. What Trump did is he co-opted the issue. He knows that everybody wants sports back, so he's trying to make it visible that he's in favor of that, and he's trying to get on the good side of that. Now the thing is that Bettman, and I know that I think it was Pierre LeBrun talked about this morning regarding Bettman reaching out to Trudeau. To Justin Trudeau, I guess feel out what availability it would be in Canada, because right now certain venues like Calgary are shut down till I think the summer, until July.
By the way, 7 Canadian teams, remember?
Right. But that's why I think you're talking about, coincidentally, the 3 neutral site places that have been mentioned so far: North Dakota, New Hampshire, Manchester, New Hampshire, and Chris Johnston mentioned Buffalo last week. They're all close to Canada. So if Canadian teams can't play in their locations, they're probably going to end up at those neutral sites.
Right.
Well, we're all going to go to neutral sites. We're not going to play in any arenas.
Why wouldn't you put a neutral site up in Canada? I mean, that's like, in my opinion, no.
Well, you're going to go. They're going to try to go. I mean, this is what I'm told, that the objective is to go to places where there's less virus.
Right.
So, you don't want to play in urban areas. You're not going to be playing in Washington, D.C. or Detroit.
Buffalo.
Yeah. So you're going to places where, Saskatoon or North Dakota, or places where I'm guessing there aren't as many cases.
Well, there are way better arenas. I mean, there are way better arenas in Canada in remote places than there are in American remote places.
But all that matters is the ice any good?
Yes.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter how many they seat or it just matters that do they have good ice and good dressing rooms.
Yeah.
Right. So why not put it up in the wherever you can in the tundra, like as far as north as you can. I mean, it'll make it colder. The ice will be colder. You'll have a better chance of not dealing with the humidity of the humidity comes from Washington D.C. We know that.
The other issue will be the logistics of accommodations, the number of hotels.
Right. Well, that's a big deal too.
Yeah, it's not like Manchester's loaded. But what I did think of, Kev, is what if they kept all the players on the University of New Hampshire? They could do that.
Well, they can, but the way that I heard it was going to be attempted, and this came from a GM who, I don't know whether it was his vision or what he had heard, but is that nobody's going to leave the hotel, so they're bringing in chefs to cook the meals and everything else. Now, here's my concern about all that. These are players who have, if they're not married, and maybe if they are married, have a very active social life.
Right.
They make lots of money. They're used to having a lot of options for entertainment at night.
Yeah.
So we're going to put them in a hotel and tell them they're going to stay there, and we're counting on them not to break the bubble.
Oh, no, I get it. Dak Prescott pretty much showed us that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just thinking,
that's fair.
You're an NHL player. You're sitting in your hotel, and this is like, I don't think this is a crime against humanity. I think it's human nature. Your friend calls you and says, hey, I'm going to be in town. I'm going to drive up. Let's sneak out. We'll go have a beer. I'll get you back by 10.
Right.
And, and that's going to happen. Or better yet,
they better be playing Fortnite. Otherwise, these guys are not going to have a season.
Ankle bracelets. I'm telling you right now.
Or something even more benign. You're playing in a place and your family comes in and gets a hotel nearby. And you just say, look, I'm just going to spend a couple of nights with my family.
Right.
And what you don't know is that somehow at the grocery store, your teenage daughter, picked it up from somebody there, or your wife, or, your mother, if she's there. You just don't know. So I'm just concerned about all that. But, at some point, it all comes down to, and how, this is what the insurance industry is based on. It's called acceptable risk.
Right.
And, that's what you got to decide.
There is a solution for those players who get cabin fever if they don't like being in the hotels. They just lose their first round series and they're out of there.
Well, no, I tell you what will happen. You're going to see these players are going to come out as buff as you'll ever see them, because they're going to go to the rink and they're going to work out,
right?
Because they like working out, and so. There'll be stuff there, and they'll be they're going to spend a lot of time at the rink.
Or the gym, like wherever the gym in the hotel is, or whatever. That one Stairmaster in that Sheridan's going to get a workout. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't you think they'll transform several different rooms into
they would have to take like conference rooms and put like
but like as an example
in there and stuff like that, and I'll show up with all my trivia games, and we can just entertain the players.
Well, the trainers on every team are going to have 4 stationary bikes in their room, because
and the other people that are being quarantined. I mean, the trainers is one thing for the players, but you're going about trainers, you're going to have coaches,
team personnel,
and you're going to have reporters. I mean, whoever does this, I
could see going with my hotel background. I could see them renting out a ballroom and putting equipment in there.
Yeah. Well, I volunteered to cover the Buffalo games.
Here's who's going to pay for your hotel? Zach, are you all over that? So.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not going. No way.
Yeah. Well,
I wouldn't go on a bet, but there are going to. I mean, even if it's going to be like Doc Emmerich or whoever's going to be in there covering the,
No. Doc Emmerich will be sitting in a studio in Stamford, Connecticut, broadcasting it, watching it on TV. He will probably not be at any of these.
That's a good point. That's probably true.
I would say that's. I don't know if it's probable or possible, but he's in his 70s. Someone brought up to me today, and because I had said, well, what they do have going for them, and they have to factor in, is if one of these players should get the virus, they're, because of their age and their health, are overwhelmingly
there's no one of that. I mean, from everything I've heard so far,
unless they didn't know they had an underlying condition, which is possible.
That's correct.
An underlying condition is another thing. That's for sure.
We're starting to see younger people. Succumb to disease.
Well, I mean, there are young players like Max Domi, who's a type 1 diabetic. That is an underlying condition.
For sure. Now, and someone brought up to me, what you're not factoring in is a lot of general managers are in the high risk zone.
Exactly.
That's true.
So we have general managers that are in their 70s.
They won't have to be there. I mean, like I think
they will be there.
You think they will be there?
Either Lou Lamoriello won't go, or Ken Holland won't go.
I don't think they will. I don't think they will be allowed to go. I think it'll be really isolated to the players, and everything else will be Skyped in, and there'll be everything like that.
Well,
there are coaches that are older.
Yeah,
coaches I get. I mean, it'll be limited to coaches too, and probably maybe an older coach might be might be a no-go for being behind the bench.
Does that mean John Tortorella is going to wear a mask with dogs on it?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Anyway, it's a complicated issue. I know there's a lot of bright minds that are working on it, and I know they're going to try to make it as safe as possible. But I think it's impossible to make it, perfectly safe, just because of this virus seems pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
And I get why we want to do it. I mean, I saw the reporting that Pierre LeBrun did that because everyone I think was asking. I know we're asking me, and I didn't have an answer. So what's the advantage of going back when you're not getting gate revenue? And of course, the answer is that sponsorships and stuff pay off heavily during the playoffs, and it's a difference of $500 million according to the reporting of Pierre. Yeah. So it's good reporting.
I'm going to give you the one thing that just popped in my mind that nobody's really taken into account that is a huge problem. So whatever sport comes back, let's say a guy breaks his leg. Now getting that guy an operation is not as easy as it used to be, where you could just call your team doctor and go right in and he'll meet you there, no matter what time it is or the next morning. Now it's a whole thing because they're not doing that many operations.
Unless you're Noah Syndergaard, Russ.
Yeah.
I mean, what I talked to Kevin, I mean, the people I talked to, and I haven't talked to you about this, Kevin, because I partially wanted to talk about it on the air because I thought it would be interesting. And it's a very different scenario. And I know there's so many different people out there with different ideas on what to do. But some of the GMs I talked to, some of the different people I talked to, and the different people at the NHL I talked to, and they were really hell-bent on the fact that you have to, that they need a regular season.
Well, that was pretty well established last week, Pierre, who cited league sources as the need to have the regular season. So
right, the regular season, right, and I wrote that too. But also that they needed to do it in front of fans, and that they would wait until September, and that they were willing, even though they're sitting there saying that they're not going to, they don't want to miss any of next year. It would be better to do it with fans in September than in September, October, November, December, and then start up in January and do like the 48 game season like they did before, than it would be to do it without fans for the revenue's sake and for their momentum sake. That you don't think that?
No, I haven't heard that. To be honest, I'm sure your sources are your sources, but nobody that I've talked to has mentioned that. They've all said the same thing. They all share my concern is even when they open up that there will be a percentage of people will come, but not everybody.
No, that's for sure.
There's going to be a natural hesitancy. I mean, it's only
that's right. And
I'm not, I don't know. I mean, like I said, my sources say, I also very much feel that they don't have to give back the ticket money if they do this, though. I mean, so even though people won't show up, they have the season ticket money. They could give the fans some kind of bonus moving forward, but they would be able to minimize the life.
I don't know they're going to be able to keep that money. That would be a public relations nightmare.
Exactly.
I'm not saying it wouldn't be, and I wrote about Ticketmaster today, so I understand those public relations nightmares for sure.
Well, especially with the league that's going to try to, have to, win back all their fans, and already there's discussion. Like I had a real honest discussion about discount ticket prices with a general manager.
Yeah, no, I've heard that too.
Who said they've already started to talk about what'll happen. I've talked to a season ticket holder who said that his team called him and asked him already whether if the season is canceled, would he put the money toward next season tickets?
Right. Yeah, that's been a general thing.
So I don't know. I mean, I do know that nothing has been finalized. So
right.
I mean, is it possible that the government, and I'm not to be, I know, you all think I'm a conspiracy theorist, but is it possible that the government subsidizes the NHL a little bit for not having fans? Like tells them, okay, we want you to start sooner without fans than later with fans.
I think the politics of the country and the fight that you have now with Democrats and Republicans over, big business and everything, I think that's a hard sell.
Yeah.
But I can't say it won't happen because they've bailed out some really big businesses. I mean, the airline industry, under normal times does well.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
and some of the money that was meant for small businesses is getting gobbled up by big businesses, and people are pissed off about that. A little bit.
1 second, let me finish before we move on. Mike, I'm sorry. Are you okay?
Yeah, no, I had some breaking news.
Yeah, we got right to that. But I think what I can determine from all this, and I'm going to talk to you later on the phone, Kevin, and share some notes on different people. But what I can say from this is that obviously, like you said, there are no plans yet. And definitely, there's leanings, there's inclinations, there's this seems to be the way it's going to go type stuff. But there are a lot of opinions. There's a lot of varying.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, among people even who you would think would be very much in the know. Like to me, that's what I'm feeling. A lot of different people. Owners have a different view of it than GMs, than the NHL. Everybody's got their own thing. So we'll get to that. Yeah. But go ahead, Mike. Go ahead with your breaking news.
Andy Strickland tweeted out about 20 minutes ago that he was told players had been told in a recent call via the NHLPA that the salary cap was going to stay flat at $81.5 million next year. And then Pierre LeBrun responded to that a few minutes later that the PA spokesman says that's not accurate. So right now, like you were saying, everything is in flux.
You know what's funny though? It could be 81.75, and then the PA would be right.
That's because obviously Pierre's obviously the source on this kind of stuff, and no question.
Yeah.
Right.
But Andy doesn't make stuff up. Andy Strickland, wouldn't make something like that up either. What this tells me is that and this could be something as stupid as this. Like there's player rumors that pop through, and a bunch of players heard different things, and then they end up telling Andy that they hear the salary cap's going to be stable.
Well, let me take from this report to a couple of the things, the news items that popped up in the last 24 hours, to actually talk about, the players and signings and things of that nature. Marco Scandella signs a 4-year deal with the St. Louis Blues, $3.275 million per year for 4 years. If you look at the Blues right now and look at their salary structure and the players that they have signed next year, and Alex Pietrangelo going to unrestricted free agency, they don't have a lot of money after signing Scandella. Pietrangelo, ideally in a perfect world, would have probably gotten $8.5, $9 million on a free agent deal. That kind of money is not going to be there next year, depending on what the cap is going to be. But I don't know how Doug Armstrong tries to move things around to open up space for Pietrangelo. In my mind, Kevin, the Scandella signing is another sort of notch in the belt that Pietrangelo is not going to be back with the Blues.
Well, I thought when I read it that he hedged his bets. Like he probably feels there's a chance that he's not going to re-sign him. Yeah. I do think they have some options. Yeah. I think they have identified some players that they could trade if they can get Pietrangelo signed. Right. At least that's kind of what around the league, I think people are thinking.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, Mike and I were talking about it. I mean, I could see him trading Bozak, cutting Sundqvist, even though, hey, he's a cheap salary, but he's not that big of a player.
Buying him out.
Whatever. It's the same thing. Buying him out, and if there's a buyout, and then you're pretty close to the money that you need. Right. But for all we know, Pietrangelo may have already told him, I'm hitting free agency, and that's sort of what it seems like. And honestly, they just signed Scott Marinovich too, who probably could play in the NHL next year.
Now, Kev,
that's another cheap player for them. So they'll hurt a little bit, but they may not care as much as we think.
Let me ask you this: when you've got a guy like Pietrangelo, I mean, all the risk would be in his book if he goes out and signs a 1-year deal somewhere. On the hope that the following year the cap goes up and everything is more financially stable. But I think there's a possibility that some of the free agents actually do that because, they're not going to get big money. They're not going to get a long-term. And if they do get a long-term deal coming this summer or whenever the off season is, it's not going to be for big money. So I think they may have to roll the dice and sign a 1-year deal somewhere.
If I'm an agent, though, I think I'm telling the guy not to do that. And I would still rather accept a 3-year deal for what I'm worth than a 1-year deal cheap.
I agree with you, Mike. Other than I would say this, I think it's going to be a little bit harder. The marketplace has changed for all the free agents.
Sure.
But when you're a top pairing defenseman,
yes,
I think people will move mountains to give him whatever he wants.
That's a great.
I just think they're so hard to find. That I think that Taylor Hall might get a little less, but I don't think Pietrangelo will.
But I don't think he'll get 7 years, Kev. I don't think he'll get that.
I don't know. He might. We'll see.
He's
Will
29.
there be COVID protection in the contract? That's my question.
I think all contracts are going to be written with
Will
that.
will we see that? Will we see like in a contract saying if the season happens to be like suspended or anything like that, that if and revenue's not made, am I going to still get my money?
I don't think owners will sign on for that. No.
The only way that
I don't either.
I don't either, but it just had to be brought up because
It's funny.
you know what this will promote? This will promote heavy signing bonuses because they get all that
For sure.
money up front.
yeah.
Like on July 1, Austin Matthews gets $14 million. That's not
Yeah, but that was when teams had money. Like, there's not a lot of teams with money.
right. But I'm saying he's already got that written into that contract, so it doesn't really matter. But
I
I mean,
get that. But I mean, for a new free agent, you've got to first find a team with money.
sure.
I mean, I seriously think you're going to see. I don't think you're going to see contracts beyond like 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
No, I don't think so either. I think 3 to 5 years is all we're going to see.
I'd be willing to bet that somebody's going to get a longer deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll have to be somebody like Peter Angelo, like somebody like that who you can only get because you're signing him to that term or whatever. That's the difference. But for the most part, you're not going to see nearly as many long deals. I don't think because why would you?
Yeah.
I mean, why would you right now? I want to get in topic today for so on yesterday's blog, I asked my readers out there to give me their best all-time playoff series or that they felt and there are some really great ones obviously and I did that because yesterday was the anniversary of the Columbus Blue Jackets knocking out the Tampa Bay Lightning in 4 games,
Which was not a great series.
which is not a great series but a memorable one for sure, and
Yes.
perhaps it could be told as the most shocking series of all time.
Yes.
Maybe. I mean, we're talking about a 30-point difference between the two teams in the regular season, and one team sweeps the other. Looking back on that, God, forgot the Tampa Lightning finished 21 points ahead of anybody.
Yeah.
That was they were 30 points ahead of Columbus, who was the last team to make the playoffs. Think about that. So there's like a 7-point difference or 8-point difference there and there. But between the top team, the Bruins, were 21 points less than the Lightning, which is unbelievable. I mean, that's an unbelievable thing. So I asked some readers, and I want to throw some of the readers' things off, and then we'll go through ours so we can get some opinions, because some of these I'm sure will be some of ours as well. But a lot of people responded. So the first one is a class. The first one that came up was by Vakoda and Archer. This is a classic for me, kind of one of those where we all remember where we were type series, and that would be the Capitals Islanders 1993 series, which is the double overtimes.
Is that the David Volek?
That's the two double overtime wins and an overtime win, and the Hunter hit on Turgeon.
Yeah, that's
I remember the hit, but I didn't watch that series. I was not able to get it.
Yeah.
Volek was the Penguins and Islanders, right?
Yeah, that's Penguins Islanders.
Yeah,
That's another one.
But that's
That
on
was
my list. So
That was a good one. All right, so then moving on, a couple other ones real quick. Oilers Flames 91. That's a good one, right? Oilers still had Messier, Anderson, Fuhrer, Tikkanen, Lowe.
Is that Steve Smith?
Fleury, and went to 2 overtimes in Game 7, and Tikkanen scored to win it.
Okay,
that's the Edmonton winning that one. And that was I remember that series. There were so many Oilers Flame series back then that were incredible. The Steve Smith one is another one, of course.
Yeah, I think that's 89 actually.
The 2007 Canucks versus Stars series. I don't remember this one or not, but 3 of the games went into overtime, including a series opener, which went to 4 overtimes. I do remember this one because I
think I tried to stay up and watch that, and I couldn't.
The 4 overtime game 1 was just one of those type epic things that that was hard to get past. I
have a few candidates here.
Yeah, no, we definitely have a couple more. I was just give you a couple more of them from here, and then we'll get into them as well.
And I'm sure Kevin does.
The 2000. These are some of the ones which I think are interesting. 2018 Nashville Winnipeg, which was a good one. That was a really good one. I'm not going to say one of the greatest of all time, but it was definitely one of the good series.
That was a good series.
Yep, and that was a heck of a one. 2013 LA St. Louis. This is what's kind of cool about that series was 6 1-goal games in that series, 2 overtime games. LA coming back from LA was down 2-0 in that series to win it.
I don't know if I really felt that way about it. I'll be honest.
Yep. And then someone brings up the 2013 Leafs Bruins series.
No.
I had to bring up.
That's a classic. That's an instant classic.
Fight me.
So Kevin, let's hear a couple of yours, and then we'll move on to ours.
The Easter epic, the '87.
Yeah.
With Pat LaFontaine's goal, 4 overtimes. I love that. That was a good series, and then to have it decided with one of the great games of all time. And I've told that story before, but I didn't actually start out going to the game because my wife was overdue with our second child.
Wow!
But when it went into 2 overtimes and it had a mud Bruneto feel to it. I was living obviously in Northern Virginia then,
right.
Where our newspaper was based, is right outside Washington D.C. So I was watching on television. My wife was asleep, and I went into the bedroom, whispered, they're going to make history at the Cap Center. I better get there. So I left for that game after the second overtime, and I got there. Now, had I gotten there when the game was over, I wouldn't have been able to get in because all of the traffic would have been flowing out, and
right.
they have all. So, I took a chance, but I got there in time to see Pat LaFontaine score, and then I went back to the office. I wrote up my story. My wife called me. She went into labor. I went to to the hospital in 12 hours or whatever it was, 14 hours later. My daughter was born.
Wow.
So that has very memorable. But 2 other series that I really remember. I don't want to go back to the Stanley Cup final because I've talked about that before. I love that series. Hextall was great.
Yeah.
Taylor scored in Game 7 after the Flyers tied it. But in '93, there were 2 great series that I recall. Toronto and LA, and in Game 7, as I recall, Wayne Gretzky had a hat trick.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Yeah, 5-4, I believe that was the final score. It was just a fun series because it really felt like the Kings were going to win a cup. Now it didn't turn out that way.
Yeah,
it almost felt like that could have been the final because it was such a great series and a fun, entertaining series to watch. And that same year, the Penguins were going for a three-peat. I mean, we've forgotten how good those Penguins teams were.
Yeah.
They had won a tough series. That's my dog poking her head.
Saw that.
No problem.
So the Penguins had a tough series, I think, against the Devils, and then they thought they would have an easier time against the Islanders, and it didn't happen that way. It ended up 2-2, and then 3-2 Penguins, and then the Islanders won Game 6, and then it went to a Game 7, and Volek scored in double overtime, I want to say. And that was sort of another Peter Klima style moment because he hadn't played a whole lot.
Right.
And he had come off the bench on a 2-on-1, I think, and had beat Barrasso, with a pretty good shot. And so I do remember those series. I mean, there's been just so many great series. The Game 7 in 2009 when Max Talbot got a couple of goals in the stands.
Oh yeah, that was great.
And Lidstrom had the opportunity, and Fleury, and there are just so many great series that I've seen. It's hard to pick up, but those 3 are very memorable to me.
Well, okay, Russ, we can trade it. We can trade off here. One from my youth, 1979 semifinal, Boston Montreal. It's the famous one where Guy Lafleur ties it late in the third period, and then the Canadians win. And they had a power play because Don Cherry, at that time the Bruins coach, the Bruins got caught for too many men on the ice. That was just an epic series.
Yeah.
I also. And this one gets overlooked a little bit. I thought the Anaheim-Chicago Western Conference Final in 2015 was a great series. It ended, the Hawks won in 7. Anaheim was up. They were up 3-2 in the series, and then Chicago came back to win that series. But I thought that was a pretty good one. And then go ahead, Russ. I'm sure you got a couple.
Well, I mean, the 2004 Stanley Cup Finals is a biggie. I mean, I covered that. I actually got to pass the cup in the Tampa locker room, but that went 7. That was amazing. There was a lot of electricity that whole series. Remember, we talked about the fight with the Ginla, LeCavalier. Like, where do you see a Stanley Cup fight in this era? You don't. So that was good. But my number one, and maybe I'm biased, but 94 Eastern Conference Finals, Rangers Devils. I mean.
Great series.
The biggest heart attack moment I ever had in sports, Valery Selepukin scoring with 7.7 seconds to go. With the Rangers up 1-0 in Game 7. Your 1940 Rangers are staring the Stanley Cup in the face, right? You're finally going to get rid of that. You're going to at least go back to the Stanley Cup, and Selepukin ties it, and then you have to sit into the intermission dying. and then it's a double overtime, and you don't know what's going to happen. And then finally Mateau scores. But that series was crazy. It was, Brodeur and Richter really at their best. But that whole thing, that whole series, the whole way it laid out, if you're a Ranger fan, you were dying.
See, and I'll bring this one up.
I wasn't happy, obviously.
Yeah, I'll bring this one up for Sabres fans because I know that they just loved this one, which was the 7-game series in the Eastern Conference Final in 2006 against Carolina, because it was a typical Buffalo situation where they get so unlucky that almost their entire defensive core dropped like flies throughout that series. That guys like Rory Fitzpatrick and Jeff Gilson were playing 20 minutes because guys like Jay McKee had a staph infection from a cut, and a couple of I think Smellick was out, and there was another one of their like top 4 or 5 defensemen that were out, and they were just playing with an AHL defense, and they got to 7 games, but then they lost to the Hurricanes, who ended up beating the Oilers in 7 in the Stanley Cup final. And Sabre fans have that they look back on that more than 99 when they lost to Dallas, or 75 when they lost to the Flyers, as that was their opportunity to win the cup, and they didn't because of fate.
Yeah, no, that was that. Yeah, I mean that was that. There's no question. I agree with you. That it was all the injuries too. Like if you remember for that Game 7, that Sabres team. Oh my gosh. They lost McPhee before Game 7, they lost
McPhee earlier. They lost
McPhee earlier. That was like that to me felt like the crushing blow of that series. Like McPhee,
they were about 3 of their starting 6. I think James Patrick was still healthy. I think he was playing like 20, and he was like 37 years old, and he was playing like 25 minutes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, you know what? I do want to bring up, because I was looking it up, trying to remember how I felt about it. The 04 Eastern Conference Finals, Flyers Tampa. That was pretty exciting, because the Flyers got within inches of getting to the cup, and everybody was like, wow, they can actually get back to the cup. And Tampa really had to pull themselves out of the fire.
Remember the star of that series?
I think it was Fedotenko.
Ruslan Fedotenko, a former Flyer.
Yeah.
Tampa, who was just like, he was unbelievable in that series.
He was amazing. Like, he was the difference. But if you remember, that was an exciting series.
Oh, it was a great series. Yeah. I went to the final. I think did Tampa win that series in Philly? I think they did.
I think it won it in Philly. Yeah,
I went to that with my fiance /
Yeah, I was covering it.
I wasn't covering that. I was still in the seats. So I'm sorry, guys. A couple texts there from NHL people during that period of time. So I'm gonna get into that later. I got to follow up some things. But so I apologize if I missed this when you guys were talking for a second. And I never try to do that, but this was kind of something I wanted to touch base on.
I'm used to it.
20. What was that?
I'm used to it.
You're used to me not paying attention to you? No, it wasn't that I wasn't paying attention. I just had this thing coming in. I wanted to make sure I was following up on it properly. The 2014 Western Conference Final. That's the Kings Blackhawks.
Kings Blackhawks, yeah.
That series to me was the most fun I've ever had watching a series. If you remember, the Hawks won Game 1, and it was pretty easy. Like they won Game 1 relatively easily, and then they won Game 2, and it was like okay, Chicago's going to go on. This is fine. And the year before they had taken out LA, I think in a sweep, right? That's what it was. Yeah, they swept LA in the playoffs.
Sounds right.
Kevin, let me ask you, because I put these 2 Stanley Cup finals in sort of the same category because I thought they were really good series, but the finale was sort of anticlimactic. Both Bruins Stanley Cup losses last year and in 2011. I mean,
wait a second. I'm still in the middle of my story.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Very rude, Mike.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about something that had to do with my thing.
No. I'll hold that thought. Let that continue. Then you can go back.
Yeah, because it was like the Kings. If you remember, this goes to Game 3. I watched a little bit of this I have this series on tape. It's on our DVR, our TiVo.
Is it on Betamax?
Our TiVo. Like I have an old TiVo that has my wedding on it and some weird things on it. But this is one of this. So I was watching this, and I'm watching Game 3, and in Game 3 of that series, it looks, the Blackhawks had just swept the Kings. In Game 3, the Blackhawks come out just and storm the Kings. They roll the Kings, and Jonathan Quick in the first period of that Game 3 was like everything. Like he was crazy, and then the Kings come back and win those next. They win the game. They win games 3 and 4, where Quick is just crazy, and the LA started to really get the momentum. Oh no, sorry. No, wait. Oh yeah, no, that's right. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. they won game 3, but shoot, did it win 3-1? I'm trying to remember who took the 3-1 lead.
I'll pull up the results. Go to another series. I'll pull up the results.
All right. Anyway, we can just fast forward. It got to 3-3. Anyway, I'm trying to remember exactly, but in 3, yeah, because the Kings were up 3-1. That's what happened. That's right. All right. I'm confusing a couple different series here. I apologize. But the Hawks won game 5 and 6, goes back, and then the Hawks had all the momentum for game 7. That was the thing, and they had this big They had this big comeback.
They split the first 2 in Chicago.
They split the first 2. There we go.
Yeah. Then LA won 4-3 in game 3.
Right.
And then Chicago won the next 2. So LA went up 3-1. Chicago tied at 3-3, and then LA won at 5-4 in game 7.
I remember game 7 because the Hawks went up 2-0 right away in Chicago. Place was going nuts. You were probably at this game, Kevin.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The Kings found their way back and way back. It forced it to overtime, and they would win. The Kings would win that game in overtime. That series, those two teams, because both were dynasty type teams. They both turned out to win multiple Stanley Cups.
Yeah, they were they were the top 2 teams for an extended period.
Yeah.
Right up to and in the salary cap era, that it was hard to sustain that, and they did. For an extended period. So, I think every run that the Blackhawks and Kings made to win their cups was fun. It was their team.
Yeah. They really were. They were entertaining. They were entertaining teams to follow. And
they were.
The other one was the epic. I think it was. I'm going to say it was 2010. I think the Flyers Penguins score-a-thon series.
No, that was 2012.
It was 2012. Thank you. 2012 on that one. And that was just where Marc-Andre Fleury couldn't stop a thing in that series, but they went back and forth.
Yeah, it's notable when Marc-Andre Fleury gets out goaltended by Ilya Brzgalov.
And he is the last Flyers goalie to win a playoff series. Like, that's the most amazing.
That's the last Flyers playoff series they won. Holy cow. That's kind of crazy.
It is. I mean, it never rings true, but it is true.
And then there was one of the Detroit, I guess the Detroit Penguins Stanley Cup final. That I think of where which
team was Hossa on that? Then I can remind me.
Well, the Penguins won in 2009 and 2008.
Yeah, what was the one that had like the game in Detroit that went to 2 or 3 overtimes in game 5? I think it was that kept the thing alive. I forget which one it was. I'm sorry. My notes got all screwed up.
That might have been 08.
I'm thinking it's 08, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. I think it was.
I didn't go to Detroit. I only covered it in Pittsburgh.
Maybe. No, here's my 2000 minutes. Okay, so I think it might have been 2009. No, that the Penguins won in 2009. The Red Wings won in 2008, right?
Right. In 08, the Detroit celebrated in Pittsburgh. I know because I was there on the ice for that, and I remember I've got pictures
celebrated in Detroit.
Right. That's right. Both teams won.
Right, because I have pictures of Chelios drinking out of the cup and in the hallway and things like that.
Because remember the epic thing that no teams ever won a championship in Pittsburgh. Remember that whole thing when we were in Pittsburgh and looked like the Penguins could win a championship and they didn't again.
Right.
That was something else. So there's some very good series. We also have Bufflin to talk about briefly, guys. I appreciate everybody. Sorry, but too much multitasking here. So Bufflin, obviously they've come the NHLPA and the NHL today. Deemed that everything's fine. No, we're all good. Everything's good. We figured it all out. It's fine, no problem. And Bufflin's just going to walk away from $14 million, apparently.
Kevin, that's the thing I'm stunned at. I mean, there's no settlement. He just walks away from the last 2 years of the deal. That's a lot to walk away from. I mean, I'm sure he's made a ton of money in his career, but geez.
Yeah, and I often say, come on, is an athlete really going to walk away from that kind of money? I say it all the time.
Well,
it rarely happens, but boy, they do. Sometimes they do.
Do you think he walked away because he didn't want to deal with it, or you think he walked away because when legal representation looked at it, they said, you don't have a good case here based on what you did?
Well, it doesn't really matter. The same is he could have just said, okay, I'll come back and play.
Right.
Yeah. So he did walk away from it.
I think the issue with him now is, honestly, if I were going to sign him next season, whenever that is, I would only do it as a forward. I would never sign him as a defenseman again.
Well, the chatter that came out after the announcement seemed to indicate that a lot of people think that he's done, that he's not.
He could be, but that's why I would only bring him back as a forward. No way would I bring him back as a defenseman. No way.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's
like, if he were smart,
yeah.
If I were his agent, I would tell him to sign with Chicago at a reasonable rate as a forward. I think that's where he would most fit in. They liked him there.
Right.
And I think he could have a big impact there offensively as a forward.
If he is going to come back, don't rule out Florida. Dale Talon loved him.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
And Quenneville's there too, so that makes a lot of sense. Well, let me ask you one thing, Kev, because it came up a couple days ago from Avis Kellnans, who's our KHL correspondent. He's now earlier in the week, there was a lot of talk about KHL players sort of being hesitant of coming over now because of the uncertainty, what's going on in the season. And we've seen a couple KHL players re-sign in Russia, and that they're probably going to come over after next year. The one exception to that apparently is our good friend Slava Voyanov, who says he wants to come over. Now he's fulfilled the 41-game suspension. He's all free and clear July 1. And I'm sorry. He's 30 years old. He won 2 cups. I think there's a team that's going to suck it up and take the PR hit if they can get him on a cheap deal.
Well, there may be enough time has passed that they might be able to get away with it. I think that's what they'll be thinking. So I think it's far more logical than it was before when, where it just wouldn't be worth the aggravation that you're going to have to be put up with. But enough time has passed. I
don't think he's going to come. Also, sorry, Kev. I don't think he's going to come as cheap as maybe you're thinking, Mike. I really don't, because he could still make a lot of money in Russia. He's not going to come over for $1 million. He's not.
No, I don't think so either. But
no, it doesn't
it would have to probably be a short-term deal, like a look-see deal, because he's been over in the KHL for 4 years. But based on the stats that he's put up there, it looks like he can still play.
So, I'm sure he can still play.
Yeah. So how good
Kevin, you're shaking your head.
No, I think he can play.
Yeah.
The only reason, because there were teams that were interested in his talent, they just weren't interested in the aggravation of the PR issue that it's going to be, because, as I recall, the police reports on that were ugly. They'll come out again if once he shows back up. So
I do have to mention, Eck, before we go, I didn't wear this hat for no reason. Tomorrow is the date that Wayne Gretzky retired, April 18th, 1999. This is the hat fans were wearing that day, and teammates were wearing that day, and it was an amazing game. Like, if you watch that thing, that was a piece of history that unfolded that maybe Mike didn't appreciate, but the rest of the world did, and it was something. It really was. Like, we none of us are old enough to remember, like, when Babe Ruth played his last game. Like, my mom is old enough to remember when they brought him back sort of on like a speaking tour, and people got to see him then, right? But Wayne Gretzky is the greatest hockey player. Mike could say he's not. I don't care. But the idea that we all got to see him have this day and go out the way he did, I think it's very memorable for a lot of hockey fans. I do.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, I remember, being in the arena when he did his lap in Philadelphia.
Yep, I was in Philly too,
and it was just something. It was just something to see.
And I was in Jersey as well.
I remember Gretzky he was a Ranger, which everybody hates the Rangers. He beat the Flyers twice in the Stanley Cup Finals, as an Oiler. He was getting, the biggest standing ovation that we'd ever heard, because the thing about Gretzky, everybody knew how important he was. Like, everybody knew what he meant to the big picture of the game.
Like, they had all the sticks.
So he handled himself so professionally and humbly too that it was just hard not to just.
He signed sticks for all his teammates, personalized them. Like, there's a lot of things that went on there, and MSG did great coverage of it back in the day. They really showed a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and the amount of respect that everybody in that building had for Wayne Gretzky, and he was only there a short time, but he still was Wayne Gretzky. It was amazing. It really was.
Yeah. No question.
That's all. I just wanted to say.
All right, I got a lot. We actually had people donate yesterday again because they were liking my alternate reality thing. Because remember how this works is if you want to know what's happening in the alternate hockey reality, what do you have there?
Troll.
They're the best player of all time. Robert.
Whatever.
All right. If you want to know what's happening in the alternate reality, if you want me to continue this, you donate $5 to the patreon.com/NHL thing, and I will continue. If you want me to stop this forever, donate $20 and I'll stop.
Patreon.com/hockey.
Right.
I mean, Kevin might donate.
Patreon.com/hockey. For $20, I'll stop. For $5, I'll continue.
You base that on the fact that my eyes glaze over when we start talking.
Yeah. Well, you'll like this one, Kevin, today. I promise you. I'm going
If
to
you donate $1,000, I'm
going to do this really fast too. I'm not going to take a long time. I'm just going to focus on 2 games. But I'm going to give you the current status of the series. So 2 nights ago, the Caps completed their sweep of the Hurricanes, which was surprising. 2 of those games, as you might remember, went to overtime. But the Hurricanes were played tough, but they did finish. It did end up Caps did end up sweeping that series. The Isles were up 3-1 going into game 5 last night. I mean, the Bruins were up 3-1 on the Isles going into game 5 last night. The Islanders did manage to pull that one off in overtime, so that series is going to go to game 6.
I'm sure Thomas Gray stood in his head.
No, Thomas Rice. No, he's not playing in that series again. The Bruins and Flames, the Blues and Flames, another very similar thing last night, except for the Blues had the chance last night to end it in 5, but the Flames extended the series, so now that's a 6-game series. So Blues up 3-2 in that series. The unfortunate thing last night is the Predators were eliminated by the Vegas Golden Knights in 5. And do you remember the interesting thing about this? In the first 3 games, the Predators did not score a goal in the first 3 games of the series against Marc-Andre Fleury, who shut them out. And then
I had forgotten.
tweaked something in that game 3, and they decided to go to the backup, Robin Lehner. And the Predators did manage to win game 4 with Lehner in goal. And Lehner stayed in goal for game 5 again, but the Predators lost. So the Vegas takes that series 4-1. Dallas. It was a 2-2 series. Dallas is now up 3-2 on Colorado. That was a good one. And then finally, the Edmonton Oilers took the series last night 4-1 over Vancouver. And that series is done officially. But let's focus on the other 2 series that were most interest: the Flyers, Penguins, and the Leafs and Lightning. Now remember, the Leafs were up 3-0 in this series.
Yeah, here we go.
The Leafs took a 3-0 lead over the Lightning in this series. It was shockingly. Tampa wins game 4. But that you didn't expect. I mean, for Tampa to be swept again would have been unbelievable. So they weren't swept again. Tampa takes games 4.
You all knew that wasn't happening.
No way. And then in game 5, Anderson gets hurt in the first period of the game, which I was always really surprised. And the lack of backup goalies that Tampa doesn't have was very apparent. That Toronto doesn't have, was very apparent as Tampa went on to win this one 7-1, sending it to game 6. Game 6 back in Tampa. I mean, this was game 5 in Toronto last night, Mike. So you were there in the alternate reality. But this was so now we're going game 6. So that's now 3-2. Will the Leafs lose a 3-0 lead to the Lightning? We'll have to see.
But Toronto does have a backup goalie now.
They do have a backup goalie, but he's
good. So
They did in the alternative universe. So
in the alternate universe, it's not experienced. And finally, the Flyers
the backup goalie is Red Light Rassic.
Can I just point out that when I was a kid and I was reading DC and Marvel comic books, the What If comic books, I absolutely hated. Okay, when you interrupted my series to say, what if Batman, Lois Lane, I just tuned right out. So
Kevin, I'm desperate. I'm trying everything I can here, man.
Yeah. I get it.
Get on with the
Just go with it a little bit longer. All right, I got one more.
Oh no,
I've got one more game.
So just tell us how the Flyers
fascinating. The series was, the Flyers had a chance to go up. It was tied to 2-2. Game 4, if you remember, the Penguins killed them. They put up a 10 spot chasing.
Yeah, I remember the 10 spot. Yeah.
Finally, reality strikes.
They chased Hart after 4 goals in the first period, and of course they had to go to Alex Lyon because Elliott was hurt in the warm-ups of that game. So then last night in game 5, everyone's like, "Oh, Hart will be back," but it turns out, as is typical with Hart, they're now claiming that he gave up those goals because of an injury, and that he just has to win his streak. So Alex Lyon went last night in game 5, and it didn't turn out well.
Was Michael Leighton backing him up?
Right, Michael Leighton's been called up, as a reserve. So the Penguins win. I mean, Lyon was good through the first 2 periods, but in the third period, the Penguins put up 4 goals, ended up winning it 6-2. So that game is now 3-2. That series is 3-2 Pittsburgh, and that's where we stand right now in our alternate reality. Thank you, Kevin, for putting up with that.
no comment on all that.
Kevin, for $20, you can end it.
Yeah. I think it would take more. Hey, look, if this is working, more power to you. So
I mean, it's a lot of work. So I was going. I mean, traveling back in alternate realities is taking years off of my life. So I'm trying my best.
if I can watch PBA bowling, you can do your alternative.
Thank
there
you.
you go.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we just can't deal with all the pelvic thrusts of who is it, Weber?
Weber, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I really hope Tampa. I really hope this weekend.
I think it was actually called the crotch chop.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my goodness. All right. That's all the time we have, blessedly, for now. Hopefully you're having a safe weekend with your family. Enjoy yourself. Get outside if it's nice where you are. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Even with the buzz, it is.